The meeting of the Resolutions Committee of the SREC is now called back to order. It is 4:45 p.m. And are there any motions?
Chairman, I'd like for the body to reconsider the motion that we approved for the resolution that came out of Tarrant County.
All right, a motion has been made to reconsider the resolution that originated in Tarrant County. Is there a second? All right, that has been seconded by Jerry Fisher. And to briefly explain what a motion to reconsider does, a motion to reconsider basically moves us back to the debate stage of a resolution. So it allows for amendments, and it also allows for passage or failure after that point. So a yes vote opens the resolution back up. A no vote leaves the resolution like it was. So that has been seconded. And is there any, is that a debatable motion? Okay, we'll now move into a vote on reconsideration of that resolution. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, I count 6. All opposed, please raise your hand. I count 1. So by a 6-to-1 vote, this resolution is opened back up for debate. Is there any discussion on this resolution?
Mr. Chairman, Naomi Narvaez, SD 25.
Yes.
Can we go down to right there? Let me see. No, further down. The resolve. This resolve. I would like to move to amend this by removing the word or tolerate.
All right, a motion has been made to amend this resolution to remove the words or tolerate. Is there a second? That has been seconded by Ms. Withrow. And is there any discussion?
May I speak to?
Please do.
Yes, sir. So the reason I want to do this is because it's very ambiguous, and it's kind of hard to determine what it is to tolerate and who tolerates and who doesn't. So that is the reason for my move.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I noticed one of our committee members is missing, so it's pretty opportunistic to reopen this, isn't it? This was debated at length, and I thought this was something that the committee had agreed on. It makes no sense to strike or tolerate. By doing that, you are saying we do tolerate known anti-Semites and known Holocaust deniers. And again, we adjusted this to say that is known, because obviously we know there's people we don't, there's activities that we aren't aware of, and that's, I understand that. But this is that is known to espouse or tolerate. Are we tolerating anti-Semites and Holocaust deniers and Nazi sympathizers? There is just no good reason to remove that language that we already voted on and that we're bringing up again because a committee member is not here.
And before we continue with the debate, the chair will point out that a motion was made to close consideration of resolutions after a certain amount of time, and the individual who's not here did not vote for that motion. So we will now continue with discussion on this motion. Is there any further discussion? You can speak to the amendment again if you'd like.
I would like, because the reason I'm asking to do this is because after discussion with several of the committee members, as said, how do we determine who tolerates or doesn't tolerate something? And second of all, I would like to say that we don't tolerate it already. I think we're putting a resolution to the body tomorrow about how we feel about anti-Semitism. And also, we need to move on from this. So I would hope that the members would agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote on this amendment. All in favor, please raise your hand. Yes. Correct. All right, that is 6 votes in favor, all against. Please raise your hand. That is 2 votes against. And now we will move back into discussion on the underlying resolution. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, we'll now move into a vote. All in favor of the resolution as amended, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously, and show the chair voting in favor as well. All right. So the chair will now, if there is no further business on resolutions, the chair will now entertain a motion to set the number of ballot propositions that we will pass. So before we get into discussing any particular ballot proposition, I want to have set in stone the total number that we plan on including in a report to the floor. This is a vote that can be reconsidered later, but I think we want to go ahead and set a limit, just so that we know how our discussion is bounded. Mr. Eller?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we set the limit at 10. I think once you go beyond 10, you get a little bit of ballot fatigue, especially since these are at the end. And we have traditionally numbered between, 1 and 11. So I think 10 is a good maximum number.
Thank you, Mr. Eller. And is there a second? All right, that has been seconded by Ms. Fisher. State your point. We are done with resolutions. Is there a resolution that you wanted to bring up? Okay, well, we can discuss that as part of the ballot propositions. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, is there any further discussion on setting the number of ballot propositions at 10 that this committee will report to the floor? All right, hearing none, we'll now move into a vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that passes unanimously. So I think the way we want to do this, and this is kind of going to be a little bit more flexible because it's not like we're making individual motions on every single one, is we have a list of proposals that have been submitted by the members of the SREC, and I assume everybody has had a chance to review those already. What I want to do first is I want to gauge interest in including each one in our final report. And that way we're not working on wordsmithing ballot propositions that are not ultimately going to be part of the report. If you open our list of proposals, and we'll start there, I think, Virgil, as we kind of go through it, I'll just take a quick vote of the committee, an up or down vote, and so we have 8 committee members present. Myself would make 9. But I don't plan on casting any tie-breaking votes. So when we get to each one, we will just take a vote on whether, without amending or anything like that, if you think you want to amend it, then we'll work on that in the next stage. But just if it's a subject that you are interested in, please, interested in wordsmithing into a ballot proposition, we will take an up or down vote on it. It's okay if we end up with more than 10, but use some discernment. Don't just vote for every single one. And so, with that being said, can we go into the working document that has all of the proposals?
Just a point of information.
Scheduled meeting, we voted to emphasize issues of border security and immigration. And so a lot of the early propositions are the ones that we've kind of worked on already in committee. We also had our virtual meeting where we went over those more. So I think the preference would definitely be to include a lot of the 10. Hopefully at least half have to do with that issue. But we'll just kind of go one by one. Once I read it, I'll stop, and then everybody who is in favor, raise your hands. And that'll kind of give us a count. And if it's 5 or more, then we'll move it over to the working section. So the first one we have is Texas should create a border protection unit and deploy additional necessary state law enforcement and military forces to seal the border, to use physical force to prevent illegal entry and trafficking, and to deport illegal aliens to Mexico or to their nations of origin. All in favor? All right. I only see 1, 2, 3. Yeah, now's the time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a point of information. So
Sure.
we could literally vote for every one of those and they'd all move to the working document.
You could.
Okay.
The point here is to narrow it down.
Right, so if there's
So-
something we feel like doesn't need to move over, we don't vote for it.
Exactly.
If we feel like it needs to move over for us to debate and discuss, maybe amend, then we would
Yeah,
vote
then
for it.
we'll get another chance to do that.
Okay, that's what I
So-
wanted to make sure. That's why I was kind of waffling on, do I raise my
Yeah.
hand, do I not raise my hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If we really need to do a second round, we can. I just want to kill a good half of them right now. So, yeah. So on that first one, this is the Border Protection Unit and et cetera, deporting illegal aliens to Mexico or to their nations of origin. So please raise your hand if you want this one. All right, that's pretty overwhelming. So that's a yes on that one. Let's just, instead of moving them yet, let's just highlight them. Yeah, that's number 1. Oh, how many people? That was 7 people. I actually, did anyone vote against that? Yeah, I think that was, yeah, we'll call it 7. Okay, the Texas legislature should pass legislation to fund and complete construction of a physical border wall. All right, only seeing 1. The legislature should require the use of E-Verify for all employers in Texas to protect jobs for legal workers by preventing the hiring of illegal aliens. All right, that one's unanimous, 8. The Texas legislature should end all subsidies in public services, including in-state college tuition and enrollment in public schools for illegal aliens. Unanimous. 8. The Texas legislature should declare English as the official language of Texas. Okay. Okay, I saw 6 hands, but let the record show that there's the opinion that we think this is already done, so, yeah. Texas calls on the federal government to stop awarding birthright citizenship to individuals whose parents are not United States citizens or legal permanent residents. Yes. Again, yes. Okay, so that one got 8. 8. The United States Congress should not grant any form of amnesty or a pathway to legalization for illegal aliens. All right, I only see 6. All right, Texas calls on the federal government to, I don't even remember this one. It says what Rolando suggests, removal. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, okay, so I think we'll go ahead and rule this one out because it's not a, sorry, Rolando. All right, legal immigration into the United States should be limited to highly skilled individuals who fill labor needs that cannot be met by American citizens, and programs that allow for chain migration and diversity visas should be eliminated. All right, I'm only seeing 2. All right, the number of immigrants legally admitted into the United States in any given year should be no higher than the number of foreign nationals who voluntarily leave or are deported from the United States in that year. All right, I see 3, but I also see a couple of people chatting. Are y'all for it? Or okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Okay, the Texas Constitution should be amended to require proof of citizenship before any individual can be registered to vote. All right, I see 6 or 7. Yeah, so there, yeah. Yeah, so there's a state law, but there's no constitutional amendment. All right, so that rounds out the initial immigration propositions. Now we'll get to other submitted propositions. Texas should prohibit healthcare workers requiring infants and toddlers to have a COVID vaccine to receive treatment. Yeah, so 0 on this. Texas should codify parents' rights in the upbringing and education of their children, and all practices at schools should reflect parents' rights to know. All right, none for that one. Texas should ban the practice of taxpayer-funded lobbying, which allows your tax dollars to be spent on lobbyists who work against the taxpayer. All right, that's unanimous. All right. As education proficiency has dropped and remedial courses are required in college, parents should be allowed to have their children participate in an appropriate school setting of their choice, utilizing state funds earmarked for their children's education. All right, I'm not hearing any on this one. The state of Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation. All right, I see 1. Okay, 3. All right. The Texas legislature should pass legislation that establishes authority within the Texas State Comptroller to administer access to gold and silver through the Texas Bullion Depository for use as legal tender. All right, I see 3. The Texas House should pass a rule change to prohibit lawmakers from voting on bills or leading the chamber while intoxicated. All right. Okay, how many do we have on that one? Yeah. Okay, I don't see any on that one. Texas should pass a law restricting any taxpayer money from going to entities that attempt to groom children with transgender ideology. Okay. All right. I see 5. Since some district attorneys are not prosecuting all human trafficking cases in their docket, the legislature should empower the Attorney General's office to prosecute untouched human trafficking cases. All right. I see 6 on that one. Texas should pass impeachment reform to require testimony to be given under oath in the Texas House for impeachment proceedings. That's, I've got 2. Yeah. Yeah. All right. The state of Texas should ensure that Texans are free to give or withhold consent for any vaccine without coercion. All right, I see 5. In response to the federal government's negligent enforcement of Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, the Texas legislature should withhold the use of the Texas National Guard from participation in overseas combat until Congress formally votes to declare war. Instead, these National Guard units should be reprioritized to secure the U.S.-Mexico border. And actually, okay, so I see 5 votes on that already, but so this is the Defend the Guard proposition. And I was given some alternative language by the proponents of that, and I'll go ahead and read it and see if you like it better too. So the alternative is the Texas legislature should pass legislation prohibiting the deployment of the Texas National Guard without Congress first formally declaring war. So do y'all like that one better, or okay? Do it, Virgil. Yes, it does. Yeah. So what is the vote count on the new version? Yes. Okay. All right. I'm seeing 8, so that's unanimous. Formally declaring war. All right. Texas should defund identity-based higher education departments in its public universities that are not preparing students for the workforce and end divisive political activism, including ethnic studies, gender studies, and critical race studies that promote ideologies incompatible with traditional American principles. And remember, we can shorten these later. So if you agree with the idea being expressed, then... All right, I see 4. Okay. Yeah, I think 4. Texas should eliminate all property taxes using every means available to the legislature, with exception to an income tax and without increasing Texans' overall tax burden. Okay, so I see 6 hands up. Texas should secure the integrity of the Texas electric energy production and delivery, ensuring that the Texas grid can withstand any natural or man-made threat to include weather, cyber, physical, electromagnetic pulse, and geomagnetic disturbances. All right, I see 7. Yeah, I think that's 7. Texas should remove all loopholes in current Texas Penal Codes 4324 and 4325 that provide affirmative defenses and prevent the prosecution of crimes related to the distribution of pornography to minors and the sexual performance of minors. All right, that's 5. Texas should reform executive emergency powers at the state level to prohibit the creation or suspension of laws that impact private entities, including religious and business, and prohibit executive emergency declarations that impede upon an individual liberty. All right, I only see 1. Texas should defund identity-based, okay, this is the same one. So I think we got 4 for this one. So I'll ask the question though, would y'all like this one better if we cut it down considerably and just basically referred to Texas like defunding higher education, that basically just ending studies-based departments, so ethnic studies, things like that? I mean, is there a version of this that y'all would agree to more, or is it just not something that really needs to be touched on? Okay, Texas should implement party registration and close primaries as a safeguard against election crossover manipulation and undue influence of the candidate selection process by individuals with no genuine commitment to the party's platform. All right, I see 7 there. And is that it? All right, that's the first pass. Is there anyone that is there any that y'all know of that was submitted that did not make it in that list? And this is kind of a speak now or forever hold your peace. And I'll ask other SRECs in the room too. Anything y'all submitted that wasn't on that list? Ms. Narvaez, and then I'll go to Ms. Lucas. Oh, go to a mic.
I believe our committee man from SD25 had a resolution that he submitted regarding the legislature, regarding asking the legislature to return the authority to the AG to prosecute voter fraud. Is that something that we can add on to?
Okay, I'm not aware of that one, but if it was submitted, we can add it to the list. Do you know, what was that from Comal County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I have the Comal County ballot prop on sound money. I don't have one on, huh? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, I only have the one on sound money.
I've got it, Naomi.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah, go ahead and put it in then. All right, and while he's working on that, well, it has a ballot prop kind of nestled in it.
Deborah Fight, SD7. Texas should require electric cars charging stations be fueled by wind and solar only.
Okay.
Deborah, can you bring it to Virgil?
Okay, hang on. Miss Lucas.
Texas should require paper, hand-marked ballots, and hand-counted ballots.
Okay, and was that one submitted? Okay. All right, we'll put these in. Okay, and then the one Miss Lucas brought up was hand-marked paper ballots only.
Susan wants to bring it to me or read it really slowly.
Just put in Texas should require the use of hand-marked paper ballots. Okay. All right. Yeah, hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots. Okay. All right. Can everyone raise your hands for, so we'll have these three. Raise your hands for the Texas Constitution should be amended to restore authority to the Texas Attorney General to prosecute election crimes. All right. Okay, I see 8 hands, 7 hands. Rolando, 7 hands on that one. All right, Texas should require electric car charging stations to be powered by wind and solar energy only. Okay, I have one. It's a really fun idea. Yeah, I don't know if it would pass in this county, but Texas should require the use of hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots. All right, I only see one on that one. Okay, so give us just a second here. I think we're going to winnow these down into just the ones that got 5 votes or more and see where that gets us, because I haven't been keeping a running count. Yeah. I think it got 3. Yeah. Okay. We'll take another vote on that one. How many were in favor of the Texas Gold and Silver Depository? Okay, so I see 5, 6 on that one. Yeah. Yeah. We'll recess for a couple of minutes while stand at ease. Don't go anywhere. I was wondering though, on the gold and silver depository, didn't we already do this several years ago? Like I remember a Giovanni Capriglione bill on this. Huh?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that we passed a law on that, but it's not actionable for us to use. And we need some further mechanisms in law to allow us to have and own gold and silver and deposit it in the depository that we've already built.
Okay, thank you. All right. While we wait, can someone speak to whether English has been declared the official language of Texas? There seems to be some disagreement on that point. So, Ms. Stannard.
In case Gail Stannard, SD15, anybody wants on this committee, I have a list of the ballot propositions up through 2016.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So I have gotten a couple of requests by text message, like kind of as we've been doing this, that we do include something related to school choice. I was even told that the governor would appreciate it if we did, just because of how critical of an issue that is becoming for the upcoming primaries. But yeah, starting with the length. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would just say use the language from the last primary, the 2022 primary.
okay,
Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children, and the funding should follow the student.
okay.
That was an agreed upon language. It received 89% of the vote. If we wish to continue that, requesting that, let's just make the same ballot language and put it on the same. Yeah.
Okay, let's add that to. Is everyone okay with adding that to the list again? And it'll. Yes, or we'll at least start with that. Ms. Bentley. Um, Yes, actually, yeah, I have had a couple of people ask me about that also. Let's. Okay, can you send it to me? Okay. And then we'll get Kristen's language pulled up for the foreign ownership. We'll take a vote on it and then put it in. How many did we end up with? All right, are we ready? Okay, do we have language on the foreign ownership? Okay, well, let me read a, because someone reached out to me who is interested in that also. Okay, so here is the language that I have heard proposed. Do you believe Texas should prohibit the Chinese government or Chinese citizens from purchasing land in Texas? Go ahead. So would it be? Yeah. So, and this is where I have to remind everybody too. We are not legislating here. These are not questions that are designed to be precise enough to be ready to pass bills. These are ideas, and so, yeah. So, okay, okay. Just plain text. Yeah. Just put it in the email. Let's get Kristen's on there real fast, and then. Okay. What I would caution on referring to all foreign nationals, though, is there are plenty of foreign nationals who we don't mind owning land in Texas. I mean, people who are here legally, who are working, I mean, ultimately we would want them to become citizens. Like, this is specifically referring to, there are certain governments that are predatory and are trying to buy up land because ultimately they want to conquer us. And exactly. And so I think we need to be careful about the boundaries of what we're asking for here. And by the way, I do have poll data on some of these questions too. So we'll go through that as we start talking about these. I think 11. Yeah, so 10 is a lot. Okay. All right. So all right, so we already voted on Texas parents and children and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children, and the funding should follow the student, right? Everyone's in favor of that being on there? Okay. And then the next one we have on here is Texas should ban the sale of Texas. Those are the ones that were in the bill? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so can we get a count on this question? Raise your hand if you're in favor of it. All right, I see 7. Okay, so I think we have 20 exactly, right? 21. All right. Yeah, so now we've got to take half of these and put them in. Essentially, we'll take half of these and move them over into a list from 1 to 10. So I think it would be pretty chaotic to try and just pick them one by one at random, like the ones that we like the most and who can make it to a microphone first. But I think going forward, we're going to kind of do what we did before, but this time I would like someone to kind of make a case for why you think it needs to be part of the report when we get to it. There are a couple of pitfalls that I want us to avoid here. One of them is a question that everybody agrees with, and we know everybody agrees with it, and so we don't even need to ask it. That doesn't do anybody any good because ultimately we're not getting more information about our voters that we can take to legislators and look for legislation to pass. The other thing is we want to make sure these questions are impactful. So if we get an overwhelming yes response on this question, this is something that can create a dramatic change and create conversations that weren't taking place before, or maybe tip the balance in favor of passing legislation. And so keep that in mind on some of these, like, if we had a question on there that just said, do we want to ban abortion in Texas, right? That's been done in the past. We all agree with that, and they've already done it, and so it wouldn't make much. So I know nobody wants to be the bad guy and take that off, but it's not the best use of our question time because we know the answer and we can't change anything with that answer. So you're looking for like what gives us new information on one axis, and then how much impact does it have on the other axis, and you want to kind of be very high in both. And so with that being said, let's kind of go chunk by chunk. So I think, I think we should just go one by one again, and then, huh? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a second round basically, but for each one, I think this time huh? Yes, but quickly. So I think for each one, I'm going to ask for a motion to add it to the report. Doesn't have to be final. We're still going to workshop the overall report, but someone's going to need to stand up and make the motion. So, Ms. Narvaez. Yes. Virgil, if you could scroll down and show the ones that we've added. Oh, okay. Yeah, we haven't gone over those yet. Do you want to go over those real fast? Okay. So you have an email from Rachel Horton, so we can go through those pretty quickly.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel, I apologize. I had to brush you off in the middle of counting. Rachel, I don't have it. Did you just send it to Scott?
Yeah, you have it. It was sent 5:23, so 11 minutes ago. Well, I'll just go ahead and I'll read them. So, and these are. Do you have a version, Rachel? Did you send me a version that is phrased as? I've been talking for 2.5 hours. I'm sorry, guys. If someone wants to get me another cup of coffee. Okay. So. Is there a version of this that is phrased as questions? Okay. Yeah. Kind of already went over. Okay. Well, do y'all still think we need to go through them, or are we ready to? Is Virgil can pull them up? No, don't worry. Yeah, we already did property taxes. Yeah. By the way, guys, this is why I asked for him to be sent in by Tuesday. Oh, thank you. I don't. All right, I'm just going to read the topics, and we'll take a quick vote on each one. The first topic, property taxes are still a burden after the state came in and forced appraisal districts to dramatically increase values. The raising and broadening of sales tax to reduce property taxes is a possible solution. So, raising sales tax to lower property taxes. Yeah, we do. So, do you want to rule that one out? Broadband. Allow the free market to solve the challenges. Okay, all in favor of including that one? I will point out that we just passed a constitutional amendment creating a new fund for rural broadband. And also, we're going to lay a bunch of wire for rural broadband that's going to be obsolete in 5 years, but whatever. Whatever, people voted for it, so. Okay, number 3, there is a push for clinics to be placed in public schools for the purpose of aiding children to transition. This needs to be prevented. Along the same lines, make it a crime to surgically or chemically alter the gender of a minor. Okay. There is a push for clinics to be placed in public schools for the purpose of aiding children to transition. This needs to be prevented. Along the same lines, make it a crime to surgically or chemically alter the gender of a minor. Everyone in favor? Okay, yeah, I'm not hearing any interest in that one. And then the last one is curtail public schools' focus on college-ready thinking and refocus on programs teaching employment-ready skills such as trades and crafts. Okay, so I think we're okay with moving on from those then. All right. Okay, so we're going to move into a one-by-one consideration of what we have on our list now. All right, so yeah, we're going to round 2. So what we're going to do is when we get to each one, kind of like what we do with resolutions, I'm going to ask for someone to actually make a motion to move it from our initial cut to the actual list of 10. If we end up with more than 10, it's okay, but I don't want to end up with many more than 10. So that this will be something where like we can actually have arguments for and against, but keep them short because we have a lot to get through. So first one, Texas Border Protection Unit, and we can read them up there by now. Does someone want to make a motion? Mr. Tully.
I make a motion to accept the first one.
All right, a motion has been made to accept the first question. Is there any further? All right, I think we can probably do without seconds. This isn't a super formal process. We're gonna have a we're gonna have a final motion that is made and opportunities to amend and all that. But I think right now we're just trying to make a quick cut. So I'll accept without a second. Is there any debate for or against including this one?
I'm for this one. I think this really applies to HB 20, correct?
Yes.
Or HB 20 created this.
Would have.
Would have created it. Yeah, would have.
So, in other words, everything. So, as far as what they will do, seal the border, use physical force to prevent illegal entry and trafficking, and deport illegal aliens to Mexico or to their nations of origin, that can happen now, except this will say we're going to have a dedicated force to do that.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I think this one is really important because some of the complaints about the bills that did pass, if I'm correct, Kelly, is that there's right, and there's really not a lot of funding in order to be able to do it, and so this really needs to happen as a next step.
Thank you, and yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit too, because I think the worry, like, our police forces have now been given the authority to essentially encourage deportations, but again, that's one thing on their long list of things they have to be doing. And they're already overwhelmed, and that's just one more thing. So they have the situational ability to do it, but if we had a force that was dedicated to the job of securing the border, that was their, like, when you make something someone's only job, it's a lot more impactful than if it's one of their 20 jobs. And so that to me is what this is about. So I think this is a very worthy inclusion. I think at this stage too, let's do some initial wordsmithing. And if there's anything major that you think needs to be amended or changed in one of these, then feel free to bring it up also. Or if you're happy with the language as it is, then we'll move forward. But we'll go ahead and take a vote on this. All in favor of including it, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that passes unanimously. Just say unanimous. All right, the next one on the list. The Texas legislature should require the use of E-Verify for all employers in Texas to protect jobs for legal workers by preventing the hiring of illegal aliens. All right, that has been moved by Rolando Garcia, and would you like to speak to it?
Yes. I actually, I believe this is the exact same wording that was put on the 2018 ballot. And I drafted the wording that the committee adopted in 2018. And I think, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the second highest scoring ballot prop in that year. It's like over 90%. So it has strong support. So why do we need to do it again? Okay, there's all this talk, and we just talked about this, about border security. There's very little talk about interior enforcement. And the quickest, simplest, easiest thing Texas can do without any federal permission to turn off the biggest magnet of illegal immigration is to mandate E-Verify. And I want to say up front that this is it's already illegal to hire illegal aliens. This simply replaces a fraud-prone enforcement mechanism with a better enforcement mechanism. Now, the reason we need this, and more than any of the other immigration-related ballot props, I believe most strongly in this one, is one, because the state can do it fairly quickly, and two, we need to tell our politicians that Republicans support this. The reason why it hasn't happened yet is because some of the biggest donors to the Republican Party and to Republican politicians are people who made their fortunes on cheap illegal labor. And that is why it has gotten almost nowhere in the legislature. And this is an issue that I think is ripe to finally bring to the forefront. And we need to, I think, putting it on the ballot will do that. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are in immigration now, as far as passing SB 3 and SB 4. And I feel like this is the next step. I mean, the Republican politicians had to be dragged kicking and screaming just to get us to SB 3 and SB 4. But now we got it. And yes, we still need the Border Protection Unit, but the next step is interior enforcement, and that means E-Verify. So I just feel like it's just a perfect segue into the next step in the immigration debate.
Thank you. Mr. Tully.
My question for this one here, and I hope the body will help me understand it. E-Verify is one thing. A company, a legitimate company, goes through that process. Where there's a lot of problem is where a company will say, well, they're not my employee, they're a contractor to me. How do you, they're individual contractors, and they'll send them a 1099. It may not go anywhere, but they'll issue a 1099. Or not as a contractor. If you're hiring somebody and they're just an individual contractor, there is no paperwork associated with that. And that's my question is there any way that we can add language potentially to this to address that big, because that's the big open hole. That's how a lot of the landscapers and stuff like that are.
Yeah, I think that is kind of like a contractor is an employer. So the contractor would have this responsibility also.
Not if it's a single individual. Okay?
But, yeah. So, yeah,
I understand that, but
yeah.
that's what I'm asking with this. And I agree with you. The interior deal is where we got to do the enforcement. But that's where a lot of these people are going. Is that a construction contractor, he'll go hire a crew of 10, foreign nationals to be able to build his building or frame his house. And each one of them is an individual contractor. He'll give him a check, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's my question is there any language that we might have? that could be added to it
I think if this were a
close that loop.
if this were a platform plank, then I think we would include all of that and make it longer. But
Okay.
we're really trying to go for simplicity here, I think.
Okay, that's
so
fine.
I think
I
as
just
long
bring
as
that
the
point.
idea is communicated by the voters, then that's something that we testify to our legislators about and let them know it's a problem so they can close that loop. Any further discussion on this item?
So Florida has this, so we can use that in our, let's be more like Florida.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if you would be open to an amendment in that the Texas legislature should stop incentivizing illegal border crossings. Well, and then, but just before, by requiring the use of E-Verify.
Well, that generates ambiguity because then someone, and remember, people reading these questions may not be familiar with the issue. They might look at that and say, oh, the Texas legislature is incentivizing border crossings by requiring it, and
Okay.
think they already do. So, and then they would vote no. So I think for simplicity's sake, we should probably keep that out.
Okay. Well, I think just to explain my thought is that I know there are a lot of issues that are important, and I think many people have expressed to me concern about having 5 ballot propositions that relate to the border, because there's so many issues that are important right now. And so my thought was that we could maybe take those 2 that are incentivizing illegal crossings and combine them. But I think if we're trying to keep them simple, it would make the language really long.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of this one being added, say aye. We're voting. All right. All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously, but guys, we're going to have to be more alert. Okay. And Virgil, make sure to make notes, too, if they pass unanimously or if they're divided. Okay. All right. Next one on there. Yeah, I can't. What is going on in there? Okay. The Texas legislature should end all subsidies and public services, including in-state college tuition and enrollment in public schools for illegal aliens. Does someone want to take this up? All right. That has been moved by Mr. Garcia, and would you like to speak to it?
I want to include all of these, but if it was up to me, we'd have just immigration and border security. But I know that's not what some of you want. This is also about turning off the magnet. One of the things that we always talk about, because there are like 30 million illegal aliens currently in the country, and people will always say, well, how are you going to deport 30 million people? Well, if we wanted to, we could. But the other thing is, we wouldn't have to actively seek out and detain and remove 30 million people if we turned off all the things that allowed them to stay here and make a living here and kept them here. If they couldn't do that, they would self-deport. And so that's why I think this is very important. I know as far as enrollment in public schools, there's a Supreme Court issue or a decision which I think is totally wrong, and I think we should challenge it. And so I'm a big fan of this. All public subsidies, public services, state tuition, which, by the way, in-state tuition, Texas, I believe, was the first state to grant in-state tuition to illegal aliens. It was signed by Rick Perry. Those were in the salad days of the Karl Rove GOP. And so I'm a big believer in this. And again, you could say, oh well, public schools enrollment the Supreme Court decided that. Well, just like the Supreme Court got Roe wrong, this one is wrong, and we're going to challenge it. So I strongly believe in this ballot prop.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this one? All right, hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All in favor of including this question, please raise your hand. All right, I see 7. All opposed? Nobody. So it's unanimous. All right, the next question on the list. Yeah, you have to scroll down so I can see them. Okay. All right, the Texas legislature should declare English as the official language of Texas. I'm told there is no official language of Texas. So does someone want to make this motion? All right, that has been moved by Rolando. And do you want to speak to it?
Can I add something to it? Because I don't want to just talk about English as the official language. I want to talk about, can we add, or would this be too complicated and we're adding a totally other subject, about eliminating bilingual education and replacing it with English immersion? Can we include that in this? Okay, the Texas legislature should declare English as the official language of Texas and abolish bilingual education and replace it with English immersion in public schools. Abolish bilingual education in public schools and replace it with English immersion.
Instead of saying English immersion, could you instead say English only education?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So English only education. All right, and is that amendment well taken by the committee? I don't hear any objection.
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion about this question? Hearing none, we'll now move into a vote. All in favor of including this item, say aye. Or raise your hand. All right, that's 3. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so, all right. Okay, so that's 3-3. So that one actually fails. Okay, wait. Who? Okay. Yeah. So I've got a 3-3 vote on this one. All right. Yeah. Next. Okay, next. Texas calls on the federal government to stop awarding birthright citizenship to individuals whose parents are not United States citizens or legal permanent residents. All right, that has been moved by Rolando Garcia. And do you want to speak to it?
Okay, the biggest obstacle to dealing with this 30 million illegal alien population in the U.S. is saying, oh, well, it's mixed families. We can't separate families. The kids are citizens, and so we can't deport the parents. I believe in keeping families together, and that they should all be deported. So, and obviously we can't, retroactively take away citizenship. But one of the, again, we're talking about magnets. They come here, they have an anchor baby, and they know that there's no way they'll ever be taken back. So, oh no, we can't, and if we end birthright citizenship, we take away a huge barrier to both deportations and self-deporting of illegal aliens.
All right, is there any further commentary on this, or can we move into a vote? Ms. Bentley.
So I don't disagree, But I think that the problem with including this on our ballot proposition is that the state can't really do anything about it. It's my understanding that this would be more of a federal issue and that it relates to immigration in a way that the Texas legislature wouldn't really. Mm-hmm. So, so I guess that would be that would be my only concern is that it would be to ask our Congress to do this. It's a federal issue. I prefer to stick with this state issues.
Okay. And is there no one else to speak? So we will move into a vote. All in favor of including this, raise your hand. Okay, that's 5. All against, raise your hand. All right, that's 1, and then I'm assuming Ms. Bentley's against also. So we'll call that pass include, but 5-2. All right. Next is the United States Congress should not grant any form of amnesty or a pathway to legalization for illegal aliens. All right, that has been moved. Is there any discussion on this item?
We need to remind John Cornyn that we oppose amnesty. He needs to hear from primary voters. And the way we worded it, it's oppose any form of amnesty or a pathway to legalization for illegal aliens. Because the amnesty crowd knows that amnesty is a bad word. So when they propose amnesty, they say, oh, no, it's not amnesty. I don't support amnesty. It's earned citizenship, pay back taxes, I don't know, whatever. It gives anything that allows people who are here illegally to stay legally is amnesty. So that's why it's worded the way it is, or a pathway to legalization for illegal aliens. And that's always the biggest threat, especially with a Democrat president, a Democrat House, and a Democrat Senate. Even if we had a Republican Senate, we have several, like John Cornyn, who will, at the first opportunity, do a comprehensive immigration bill that gives some form of amnesty. And so I feel like we have to tell our electeds, like John Cornyn, and all of our Republican congressmen, no amnesty, no legalization of any kind ever.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of including this, raise your hand. All right, I see 6 hands up. Yeah, that's 6. All against including it?
Oh, I want to do, I can't do a friendly amendment, but I just, Virgil's suggestion, I think it's a good idea. Adding in front at the very beginning, say something like Texas demands or Texas urges that the United States Congress not grant. Does that work? Okay, yeah.
All right, no objections? Hearing none? Okay. Huh? Well, we wouldn't use the word shall because, well, no, we're just urging them not to. Okay, next is the Texas Constitution should be amended to require proof of citizenship before any individual can be registered to vote. Or alternatively, Texas should require proof of citizenship for all voters. Is there a motion here? All right, that's been moved by Rolando. Do you want to speak to it?
Yes, apparently, I think Andy informed us that this is a law, but it needs to be a constitutional amendment. So I think I think we all know it's a huge issue that we have, 5 million or 2 to 3 million, however many illegal aliens currently in the state of Texas. Many of them have driver's licenses. there's not much we can do at this point. If they register to vote, there's nothing to stop them from registering to vote and then voting. There's almost nothing. And so I don't expect that this is, because a constitutional amendment needs 2/3, and we're obviously not going to get any Democrats to vote for this. So I'm not holding my breath that it will pass the state legislature. But I still think it's a significant issue that we need to highlight.
So I'll actually debate against this. This constitutional amendment was brought up in the legislature, and it was brought to a vote before the House, and every Republican, except for one, who is not coming back, and his name his name rhymes with Randy Burr, voted for it. And so on this issue, the obstacle is Democrats not voting for a constitutional amendment that requires 2/3. It's not something where we have to drum up will among Republican voters to get this done. It's in the law. Republicans in the legislature have shown their willingness to amend the Constitution to achieve it. And so I've got to think that whenever any kind of window of opportunity presents itself for them to do that, they will. And so I think the level of impact of this one would not be very high. So I would be against including it for that reason. Yeah. Are there any other thoughts on this one? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. That's 1, 2. Oh, yeah, okay. And all opposed? All right, that's enough. So do not include. Yeah. Okay. Next up, the Texas legislature should pass legislation prohibiting the deployment of the Texas National Guard without Congress first formally declaring war. Does someone want to make a motion to include this? All right. That has been moved by Mr. Eller. And can you go ahead and, oh, Rolando, you moved it? Okay. All right, and if you want to go ahead and speak to it.
Yes, this is in our platform, and I was the one that put it there, I think 2 or 3 conventions ago. I think many of you have gotten a lot of emails and text messages from the Republican Liberty Caucus of Texas. This is an issue that's very important to them. And the issues of, endless foreign wars, I wish we could go a lot further in this medium, but I think for now, this is what makes sense for a ballot proposition. The Republicans, if you saw, you've seen the evolution of Ukraine. It went from 2 years ago, everyone, including Republicans, were supporting it. Now it's toxic to support it in a Republican primary. So you see Republicans more and more waking up to the dangers of, foreign entanglements. So I think this is a way that puts it very clearly. It says we're going to protect Texas National Guard and Texas soldiers from being deployed in these wars, which are not actual wars, because Congress never declared war. The sense. We cut out, initially it had something about Article 1, which I think was very difficult to understand, but I think this is pretty easy to understand. We're focusing a lot on domestic issues. In fact, it's entirely on domestic issues, which is fine. I do think we need at least one ballot proposition that speaks to the increasing opposition among Republicans to these foreign entanglements. And I think this one is very well positioned.
Thank you. And so while you've been talking, Virgil's been typing, as is common. And so I think we can do a little wordsmithing here, if it's well taken by the committee. I do like the phrase, so starting off, I think we need to make it clear that we're not against deploying the National Guard in all circumstances or in all locations, but we are against deploying them to a foreign country. And so So would it be agreeable to change the language to say the Texas legislature should pass legislation prohibiting the deployment of the Texas National Guard? No, don't say overseas because it could be, yeah. But the Texas National Guard to a foreign country without Congress first formally declaring war, unless Congress first declares war against that country. Well, there's conflict. Okay. Yeah, and that way we can still do humanitarian and that kind of thing. Okay. Is there any more, is everyone happy with this language, or is there any more wordsmithing you'll want to see there? All right. All in favor of including this one, raise your hands. All right. That's unanimous. Unanimous. All right. Texas should ban the practice of taxpayer-funded lobbying, which allows your tax dollars to be spent on lobbyists who work against the taxpayer. That has been moved by Don McDonald. So does someone want to speak to this? Have we asked this question in the past? Okay. Yeah, so in the last one. Okay, so it was exactly the same language, and that got 94%. So, all right. Is there any discussion on this ballot question? All right. Yeah, and so I hear what you're saying, that we've already asked it, so why do it again? Yeah, but yeah. 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 All right. All in favor of including this, raise your hand. Okay. I see 6. All opposed? 1. All right. Include it 6-1. All right, next. The Texas legislature should pass legislation that establishes authority within the Texas State Comptroller to administer access to gold and silver through the Texas Bullion Depository for use as legal tender. Does someone want to make this motion? All right, Mr. Tully, do you want to speak to it? Okay.
Second version of this, instead of saying should pass legislation, should establish.
Yeah, is this change well taken to just shorten the very first few words to the Texas legislature? Okay, let's, I don't hear an objection to doing that.
And I will just add, this is a good replacement for CBDC, the central bank,
Yeah.
and we definitely want people to understand we do not want central banks. So,
Ms. Bentley.
So this was such a good bill by Representative DeRazio. And what we saw toward the end of the session was that it was starting to really get some attention. And it actually passed out of state affairs in the House. sovereignty, for economic freedom, for what could possibly be coming, things that we hear about the World Economic Forum, central banking, as I think Andy said, the central banking, digital currency. But what I love about this is that it allows us to start advocating for it early, to start getting attention to it, educating our voter base, to apply more pressure in the legislative session. And so I see a really strong benefit to getting this one on the ballot. We also have people like Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room who advised on this bill, helped write it, writes books about this, talks about this. So again, I just think from a messaging